All right, wonderful. Welcome, Mark, to our most recent edition in our SUNY Show and Tell series. I'm
Thank you.
happy to welcome you today on this great crisp June day, depending on where you are located in New York. I just have a few slides before we get right into your presentation, so please bear with me. The first slide being as a reminder to any of you that are watching this in today, real current time, or sometime in the future between now and August 5th, or if you're watching it on a recording somewhere else, just a reminder that the new workplace platform is live and you yourself can switch back and forth between versions by selecting under the question mark icon the opportunity to switch. And what that's going to do is allow you to get a little more comfortable with the new platform while also being able to kind of call back to what you're familiar with, right? It's a lot different. So just wanted to put that PSA in there because you have to initiate it yourself. So wanting to make sure that you are in fact able to do that. And now, that's my only announcement. So I wanted to welcome you, Mark. Mark Sullivan is the IDS Project Executive Director. He's here to tell us exactly what the IDS Project actually is. I was not really aware of what it was, what it does, and what it can do for our local academic libraries and libraries throughout the state. So I'm really excited to have him here to fill us in. And also just some housekeeping notes. We are streaming now on Workplace exclusively. You can watch this session afterwards. Hi, if you're watching it in the future. And if you do post a question or comment after the fact, just know that we'll follow up in a timely manner to the answer to that question. And obviously Mark will be sharing his contact information outside of Workplace as well. Just let me stop my share, and Mark, you'll be able to pop on up. And thanks, everybody.
Okay, how's that look?
It looks great.
Okay, well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. So, the Information Delivery Services Project. IDS is a people project. It's something that we've been focusing on for a very long time. It's the idea that we can do more together than we have been able to do on our own. And we've tried to work and build a community among all of our members and to try to help each other out whenever we possibly can. One of the original scary ideas that our founder, Ed Rivenberg, came up with was your library is my library and my library is your library. It's brought together some coordinated collection development in addition to being able to focus almost completely on the clearly and critically understood purpose of effective resource sharing. So a little bit about IDS history. IDS was originally a pilot project, and it was back in 2003 that it was started by Ed Rivenberg, who was the director here at Milne Library at SUNY Geneseo. We were finishing up the Alias migration from all the SUNY libraries, and we were trying to get the universal borrowing module to work for the SUNY libraries. After months of trying to get it to work, we gave up. We couldn't get it to work properly for the libraries that were in the test program. So we started looking into other options, and several of us in comprehensive libraries had been using Iliad for our interlibrary loan software at the time, and Ed decided to see if we could build something that would actually work for universal borrowing using the Iliad software system. One of the things that he wanted was a way that we could actually analyze the data that we could collect through Iliad. So what we ended up doing was connecting all the SQL servers into a local IDS server for statistics. And if you were part of that original group, you probably remember the infamous red-green chart. Green meant that you were within the 24-hour for articles and 72 hours for loans. Red meant that you'd missed the cutoff a little bit. We caught a little bit of flack for that chart, but it did help us to try and track down some of the issues that people were having and to help out the different libraries. And this went on for a few years, and we were able to do quite a bit of work with the staff at the Milne Library to help the other libraries come up on the IDS Project software and the uh, workflow toolkit, as we called it. So basically, how to come up on Iliad and do all the different transactions and workflow analysis. By spring of 2006, we had 21 members, including the New York State Library, New York Public Library, and several private libraries. We had no discovery for holdings at this point, so we ended up developing two different systems. The first was Alias, the Article Licensing Information Availability Service. And what that did was it collected all the holdings for the journals from all the different IDS libraries and combined it with a license database that we had built by hand. This license database allowed us to determine what could be loaned and what couldn't be loaned based on licensing information from the publisher and provider's website. The other system that we built was called IDS Search, and it was a front-end search engine for OCLC holdings. So we were able to build a system that was clean, crisp, and allowed you to search just the local holdings of your library, the IDS project holdings, or global holdings based on a radio button choice. Both these systems are still in use today. One of the other things that we tried to do was come up with a way that we could handle the new libraries and bringing up new libraries. Originally, the IDS project was supported by the IL staff at SUNY Geneseo, and that really became problematic as we started having more and more libraries in the project. So we started what we called the mentor program. And this was a group of people that were brought in from SUNY libraries and some of the private libraries that had joined the project. They went through a little bit of training with some of the people that had been doing the installations and workflow enhancements at the different libraries. And then these became our first set of mentors. And what they did was they went out to the libraries that were just coming up. They'd sit down with them for several hours, sometimes a full day, and they would help them come up onto the the IDS project software. They would show them how to do installs, configurations for Iliad, a lot of the different things that allowed the libraries to do more work and waste less time with meaningless button pushing, thanks to routing rules and other benefits of the mentoring. So the IDS community, from its original start as just a SUNY pilot project, the community has grown quite a bit. We now have members that are part of Borrow Direct, Boston Library Consortia, Connect New York, Gwilla, the IB Plus libraries, New York 6, Rapid, and many other consortia across the country. We've got quite a bunch of groups, and we're not exclusive. We'll work with any group that wants to work with us and with any library that wants to work with us. Membership has grown significantly since our original 12 back in 2003. We're now at 121 member libraries in 2019. That's brought on several of its own challenges. So we now have the mentor certification program, and we have an online course package that goes along with this. And our coordinator for mentor program and mentor training goes through and teaches the new mentors all the different things that are part of the project. And now there are quite a few new things, a lot of new technologies that we have involved, and Iliad's changed quite a bit over the last 16 years as well. So we've been able to incorporate a lot more into the workflow toolkit and into the mentor training. So we now have a lot more mentors that we work with who have a lot more training and a lot more ability to help the different libraries.
Mark, I have a question for you about the mentors. How does someone become a mentor, or is there a specific set of descriptions that would say like, oh, you should be a mentor, or how does that process work for you?
Well, if a person wants to become a mentor, then they would send an email off to either me or to Beth Posner, who is our coordinator of training, and then they would be able to join the Online Mentor Institute.
Okay.
And this institute is what we do for the coursework that they have to do to become a mentor.
hmm Is there a specific type of person who gravitates towards being a mentor or someone that you look for?
Basically, someone who's interested in helping.
Okay.
We really don't have um, someone who's very familiar with Iliad helps quite a bit, but there's a lot of the training involved in Iliad as well, so that while helpful is part of the training to become more and more familiar with Iliad. If you've got a love of technology, you may end up finding out that you are more fit to be a logic specialist than a traditional mentor, in which
Mm.
case you would be working with IDS Logic, which we'll go into in a little bit.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So this is our current list of mentors, and you'll notice some of them are coordinators as well, like Jennifer Acker is the coordinator of our regional user groups. Um, Michael Little is the coordinator of Online Learning Institute. Beth Posner is the coordinator of training, and Elise Thornley is the coordinator of mentors. So while Beth does the training of the mentors and the updates to their training so that everyone is up to speed on all the new changes that come out through Iliad and through the project, Elise handles the coordination of the mentors as to how they work with the current IDS project members and the new members that are being brought on. So she works with them through a program called Basecamp and helps with the onboarding of new libraries. So if you go to the IDS Project website and then go down to the member list, it gives you a list of all the current IDS Project members, their OCLC symbol, the state that they're located in, the time zone that they're located in, their status, and we now have a list of all the mentors as well. So each library has a specific mentor that they've been assigned and that they'll work with. That doesn't mean that they are only allowed to work with that mentor, but that's the one that's been assigned to them. They can also go to idsproject.libanswers.com and type in their question and see if the question's already been asked and already been answered. If it has, then they've already got their solution. If it hasn't, they can actually submit a question into the system, and then one of the mentors in the program will actually take the time to read the questions and answer the questions. And sometimes they'll have to log into the person's system with them and sit down and work through the problem and the configuration changes that need to be made to Iliad to take care of the issue that they're having. The great thing about this is once it's done and the answers have been submitted into the system, it becomes part of the new workflow toolkit. Now, this is what we call the workflow toolkit, and it's essentially the newest version, and it's also a living document. Our original workflow toolkit back in 2003, 2004, when we started putting it together, was a 3-ring binder that had all the printouts for all the different configuration changes that need to be made. And that's developed over the years into a wiki and then finally into LibAnswers, where we're actually able to have a living document with more information and questions and answers that are being developed on a daily basis. One of the other things that we started back in 2012 are the regional user groups. And these are broken down into 3 groups: Western, Eastern, and Metro. And that way we have less travel time for the people in the different groups. What these do is they are essentially a day-long workshop that has different sections on different topics. The most recent of the regional user groups focus almost completely on ALMA and different ALMA training for resource sharing, fulfillment, and integration with Iliad. So we focused on ALMA this time around, but there's been other things that we've focused on in previous years. One of the things that we did was a workshop entirely devoted to updating the Iliad web pages from the basic installation pages. We had one library SUNY New Paltz that hadn't updated their website from the original when they first came to the regional user group. And after about a week after the regional user group, they sent us a screenshot of their new pages. So they went from the bare bones installation to the beautiful page that's on your right that has their colors, their logo, and all their information in it. This is one of the nicest examples of how good of a job the regional user groups have done over the years, and I like having this slide in here just to show that this is what happens when you get a group of people together to work on something and you get a result. Now, one of the other things that we've been trying to work on is a virtual user group. And the first virtual user group we had was this year in May 10th. And from now on, it will mirror the RUG sections. So we will continue to have a virtual user group so that our libraries that are across the country and not located in New York will have the ability to come to a user group. We have 150 virtual seats available through GoToMeeting. We also have access to WebEx through Logan Rath, who will be our next coordinator of regional user groups after Jennifer Acker steps down this summer. She's been doing it for 6 years, so it's about time for her to take a break from doing regional user groups. She's done a fantastic job over the past few years. One of the other things that we've done is we've developed an online learning institute. And these have a lot of different courses involved. We have some of the basic borrowing, lending, and copyright courses that are offered each semester. We also have special classes such as Purchase on Demand, Statistics and Assessment, and Workflow Analysis. And these are free to everyone in the country that uses Iliad. We don't charge for these, and we have instructors from all over the country come in and log in and do their courses. We also have information that is on Canvas for them to use, and we have recordings of presentations and other sessions for them to look at. So the Online Learning Institute has done really well over the past few years. It was also another winner of the Thinking Resource Sharing Award. Something else that we've been focused on for the past couple of years has been the IDS technologies. The main reason for the technology is to meet the needs of the community for the benefit of the patron. We don't contract out to other companies to build us software. We do it in-house. It's a tool by the members for the members. And the primary purpose of the technology is to get the resources to the patron as fast and as efficiently as we can. Secondary purpose, no meaningless button clicking. If we can avoid it and automate it, then we're going to do that. One of the things that we've been trying to do over the past couple of years is to develop this tool so that we have less time wasted by things that can be automated. And that involves IDS logic. IDS logic is essentially middleware that works with Iliad system to pull in data from your Z3950, which is your online catalog system. It pulls in data from Alias. Alias is now a module of IDS logic instead of the standalone system that we originally had back in 2006. We are also pulling in information from OCLC and a lot of different APIs. So we're able to pull in information such as open access and other locations for journals and other information. So what does this mean for me? Well, IDS logic can insert information into transactions. Things like call number, location, and availability, you can pull in that information from your online catalog system, so you no longer have to go in and cut and paste that information out of your catalog. IDS logic can also route transactions based on the information that it pulls in. Based on location, it may route something to a waiting staff review, or it may route it to a specific queue for that location so that people know that it's something that they're going to have to deal with at, say, a depository or an annex or something. IDS Logic can also cancel requests and update the transactions in Alias and at WorldShare at OCLC. So if a request comes in to lending and the requested item is already checked out to someone, or it's in a collection that you don't loan from, say reference or reserve materials, then IDS Logic can automatically cancel those requests, so you don't actually have to deal with those. IDS Logic can also send emails to patrons and to other libraries based on criteria you give it. One of the emails that Logic sends out is the notice to the patron that their request loan is sitting on the shelf and has been sitting there for 3 or 4 days now, and they probably should come and pick it up. So we have a few things that work like that. It can also take information that's based in the transaction table of the SQL server that Iliad has access to and take actions based on that criteria. So information based on call number, location, NVTGCs, all different types of information can be searched, and then actions based on that criteria, whether it's to cancel the request, route the request to a different queue, flag the request for something. A lot of different things can be done with IDS Logic and the logic rules. One of the first modules that we produce for our IDS Logic is the lending availability service. It takes a look at the loan requests that come into lending, pulls in the call number, shelving location, item ID, and availability. In this case, the item ID is going to be the barcode number that we're pulling in from ALMA for the new SUNY libraries, for the SUNY library's new system. It routes to new statuses based on availability information or other information. And if the item is unavailable, it can automatically cancel the request. University of Oregon put together a nice little flow chart for us based on the traditional ILL lending workflow. And these are the different steps along the way to actually get the information to do a lending loan workflow or request. When you have IDS Logic working, these are the last things that need to be done. Everything else can be automated. Definitely saves a few steps along the way. So in 2018, we had a lot of cancellations for requests that were already checked out or that were part of a collection that weren't loaned. So of those requests, 54% were automatically canceled by IDS Logic. So that was a tremendous number of requests that the members of the IDS project didn't actually have to look up and cancel on their own. Now, the borrowing availability service takes a look at a loan request that comes into borrowing. First, it checks to see if it's locally held and if it's available. If it's locally held and available, it can route it into document delivery so that it can be processed there. If that's the case, it also pulls in the call number, shelving location, and a barcode or item ID. If it's not available, it can route it to the awaiting request processing queue and have information ready for it to be sent out to the borrowing or to the lending libraries. So we had almost 300,000 requests that went through IDS Logic for the IDS project members last year. So I've mentioned Alias a couple of times now, and I thought it would be a good idea to actually go in and talk a little bit more about it. So the Article Licensing Information Availability Service, or Alias, takes a request from a patron. As it comes into Iliad, Logic then scans the request. It determines if it has an ISSN and date, and then verifies that information. Then sends it into the Alias holdings and licensing database. Based on the information found in the holdings, and if the library is allowed to lend from that journal provider, it builds a lender string out of the library codes. It then sends this information back to IDS Logic, which then checks to see if it's a locally held item. If it's a locally held item, it then sends it to the local holdings queue in Alias, or can be rerouted into document delivery. If it's not held locally, then it takes the lender string that's been built and sends it off to OCLC to be processed. If for some reason none of the libraries in the project can loan that journal, then the request gets sent off to awaiting request processing for manual processing and sending off to OCLC. There's some additional some additional logic services that we've developed over the years. There's a lending book chapter availability service, which looks into the book chapter information and determines whether or not the book is available, and if we can then process the chapter out of it for the different borrowing library. We also have the borrowing book chapter availability service, which checks to see if it's a book that we have available within our library. And if it is, then it's routed to document delivery for processing. If it's not something that's available, then the request gets configured and sent out to OCLC. We also have customizable logic rules. These are rules that are based on pain points, essentially. All different things that the libraries come up with that they need to be able to do, whether it's routing a request based on call number information or based on location information that comes through the Z3950 lookup. Basically, it's an attempt to try to eliminate anything that's causing headaches for the staff. We've got some libraries that have 2 or 3 logic rules, and we have some libraries that are up into the 50s and 60s for their logic rules. It really depends on how complex that you want to get the system. We also have what we're calling the enhanced rule kit. So we have things like the borrowing loan due on shelf, which sends a notice to the ILL staff that a loan that was borrowed from another library is already due to go back to that library, and it's still sitting on the shelf, so it was never actually checked out to the patron. We have the borrowing loan renewal okay and denied processing. So those can automate the process to send out the email to let the patron know that the renewal's been okayed or that it's been denied and they need to return the book at the same due date. Due dates can also be updated through these two so that the new due date will be shown within the Alias client. We also have the borrowing loan delay received. This is a simple little function that basically is set there for books that have to go to a second pickup location instead of being picked up at the main desk. And what this will do is it delays the email that goes out to allow the patron to know that their request is ready to be picked up. We've got a few more. One of my favorites is the loan pickup reminder, and that is the email that gets sent out to the patron to let them know that the book that they requested is still sitting on the shelf waiting for them to come pick it up. We also have the long overdue check shelves. So that's for requests that were sent out to a borrowing library, and they should have sent it back a week or 2 before, and it has yet to arrive or has yet to be checked in. So before an email is sent out to the borrowing library, this flags the request to make sure that you check your shelves just in case it was returned but not checked in properly. So we took a look at some of the data for the article requests in 2018, and we had about 550,000 requests through the project. About a third of them were handled through Alias, and another third were handled through Rapid. One of the things that we do is we make sure that both systems are available to IDS Project members so that they can use either or both. And depending on how they want to have their article requests routed, it can go to Rapid first or to Alias first. And if it fails in either of them, then it goes automatically to the next one in the system. If it fails in both of them, then the request goes out to OCLC to be processed. So in addition to The IDS logic system being used by all the member libraries. It's also used by several libraries that are just subscribing to the software and actually aren't members of the project. So we have several of the Ivy League systems using IDS logic. And we have a lot of other libraries as well that have subscribed to the system and have been going through different configurations with me to get things working the way they'd like them to work. So we have the lending availability service and then the logic suite, which includes the lending availability service and the borrowing availability service. We've recently added a new system, and that's called the Article Gateway. The Article Gateway is an article provider platform, and it allows us to configure the request as it comes in so that decisions can be automatically made based on the information coming in. A lot of different sources and vendors can be integrated into the system, but there's some simple modules that are really there to make everyone's life a lot easier. The first of these modules is called the ISSN fixer. When an article request comes in, a lot of times it doesn't have an ISSN, or it has an ISSN, but it's not in the proper format, or it's not, has a lot of other garbage in it, or something's not quite right. So what the Article Gateway piece does is it takes a look at a local database and determines if the journal title matches any of the over 5,500 entries in the local database. If it does find a match, it then pulls the ISSN from that database and puts it into the ISSN field. If it can't find the title of the journal in the local database, it then searches OCLC for the correct ISSN. If it doesn't find a 100% match, though, it then moves it into a staff a manual fixing queue called awaiting staff ISSN identification. And what that does is it allows the staff to know that they have to go in and fix the ISSN manually and that it's already been checked against a couple different sources. The year fixer works a little bit differently. First, it checks the field for extra data, such as a month, and sets the year properly. And if the month information was found in the field, it moves that over to the month field. So it's able to clean up both the month and the year fields. If there's a lot of extra garbage that's in the year field, it tries to pull the year out of that information and then cleans up the field and drops the year back in. If it's unable to get the year information out of the field, it then moves it into the awaiting staff year identification queue so that the staff know that they have to go in and manually determine what the proper year is. So usually we hope that we can find the year somewhere in the data that's in that field, but a lot of times things will get moved into the awaiting staff year identification, and the staff will have to go through and see if they can determine what the proper year is. Sometimes that means an email out to the patron to try and get a better citation. Other times they're able to get that information directly. Once there's a proper year in ISSN, the Article Gateway system then checks to see if it passes the rule of 5. It basically checks the number of requests in the current year for the journal and determines if copyright needs to be paid. If copyright is clear and it doesn't need to be paid, it moves the request out of awaiting copyright. What this means is a request that comes in over the weekend that doesn't have to be cleared through copyright automatically gets sent off to the next library, either through Alias, Rapid, or through OCLC. This way, the system can really speed up the processing of the requests. It can also check PubMed Checker. What this system does is it determines if there's any open access materials that are available for that request. If there are, it pulls down the PDF link and puts that into the system so that people can actually take a look at the PDF and determine if it's the right item and then send that off to their patron. So if the rule of 5 has not been met and it doesn't exist in open access, then this article gateway can determine what's the best option for paying copyright or purchasing the article. It can go through either regular copyright gateway and determine the price, and then verify that price against Get It Now from Copyright Clearance Center or the reprints desk. And choosing the best price, it can then route the queue or route the request into the proper queue. Now, there's also the possibility of setting this up for automatic purchasing through reprints desk, so that if you have, say, a purchasing profile for faculty, that if it's not something that you can get through copyright clearance for free, then it will automatically purchase for them at a certain price point. Tim Jackson put together some information for us while he was at University of Albany. And pre-article gateway, it took about a day and a half turnaround time for a requested article to be sent off to the patron. So from the time the request was submitted to the system to when it was the email went out to the patron letting him know that it was available for download was about a day and a half. After the article gateway was installed, it was down to less than 1 day. On average, it was 16 hours faster using article gateway. Of the 5,700 citations completed, of the 5,700 requests during that time period, 67% of the citations were completed or fixed. That was a tremendous number of requests that did not have to be manually fixed by the staff. 92% did not require copyright processing. And of the 8% that did, the lowest price was determined, and a lot of those went through reprints desk and were actually purchased and sent out for their patrons. So, benefits of the IDS Project membership in a nutshell. We have reciprocal agreement among all the members, so we don't charge each other for borrowing or lending. We also have the mentor program. So if you're having issues with Iliad or would like to see if there's any changes that can be made to the system to make it run faster or better, you have access to your mentor who can work with you. You also have a community of support, both through the workflow toolkit and through IDS technologies with the IDS Project logic specialists and through the mentors as well. In addition to the mentors, a lot of times if a request goes out to the Workflow Toolkit listserv or to the IDS listserv, someone from one of those will answer the question, and a lot of times it's an IDS project member that is doing the best that they can to help you with your problem. Like I said before, we have the Workflow Toolkit, which is now up on LibAnswers, and you can do a search of that system, or you can actually submit a ticket through there and have one of the mentors answer the question through the ticket. At which point that information becomes part of the workflow toolkit for the next person that has the same issue. We have the regional user groups, which are offered in the spring and the fall, and then an all-region user group that is set the day before the conference. We also are putting together the virtual user groups, and we will be doing those from now on. We have IDS technologies such as IDS Logic and Alias. And then we have the conference, which is coming up. It's July 25th through 26th at Utica College this year. We had it at Utica College last year as well. They did such a wonderful job for us that we decided to stay for a second year. Their organization, the food, everything really was just top of the line, and we couldn't have asked for a better group to work with for the conference, and the conference planning team decided that we were going to do that again. So thank you very much for listening to me today.
No problem. I learned a lot. I mean, I already knew this, but I did have some questions for you because I've noticed like people coming in and out of watching the feed, and obviously, you know, from being a non-library person, I was first curious, obviously, how your first user group went, the virtual user group. Like, how was that? Because that was what, last month, right?
Yep,
So,
last month.
and
Actually, it went extremely well. We had 87 people signed up for it.
great.
I think we got pretty close to the total number of people that had signed up for it, but I don't know the exact number.
Mm,
But we had a good group coming in, and the sessions went very smoothly.
awesome. And a lot of like out of state, right? A lot of people from across the country, you
Yep,
were saying. Good.
yep.
That's awesome.
We have tremendous number of libraries that are actually up on Alma already in the
Mm,
project, and more coming up in addition to the SUNYs. So we've got the SUNY libraries coming up on Alma, and then I'd say we've probably got another 20 libraries that are either already on Alma or coming up on Alma, bringing us
great.
to high 80s. So a
Great.
good portion of our project's running Alma right now.
Yeah. So the biggest question is like, so obviously SUNY, right? We're all connected. We sort of talk to each other, but how do libraries from outside of the state or outside of the system find you? Do you get that feedback, or is it just word of mouth, or
Do presentations at other conferences.
mm,
We'll probably do another presentation at NWIL.
mhm,
We get involved in some of the other resource sharing groups around, but a lot of it's word of mouth from the different schools.
mhm. The opportunity to take advantage of that toolkit
Mhm.
is pretty amazing, especially I know like me being like, oh, your book is due. Great. To know that that's automated.
Yep.
It's great. Um, and then I just had, well, obviously also congratulations on the awards. Very deserving based on, the presentation and the knowledge base there. Um, do they have to be academic libraries?
Nope. We've
Okay.
got a couple public libraries. Like I mentioned,
Okay.
we have the New York State Library and the New York Public Library as members.
Gotcha. Those are like trick ones though, because they're the states. It's like, oh, if a
Mhm.
local, let's say that someone found this presentation and they were a local library, if they
Mhm.
had the needs and the software, they could also participate. Right?
Yep, definitely.
Great. Oh, wonderful. Well, I think that's it. Let me just double check to make sure I didn't miss anything. Yeah, this has been really informative, I think, especially for people that don't work in the library sphere or have any idea the amount of work that goes into the behind the scenes um, at a library, specifically the ones that exist on our campuses.
Mhm.
So this has been really great. Do you have any parting words for us?
Well, we have some new things coming down the line. We've got our programmers taking a look at a program called Clean Slip,
Hmm.
which was developed out in the California libraries for Alma. And what it does is it takes the export Excel file from your lending requests and then builds the lending slips for the books.
Great. That would
So
be
it
really exciting.
simplifies the process quite a bit for Alma, makes it much cleaner. You can build your own templates then, and it's gotten great reviews. So we're looking at installing and configuring our own system for the IDS project.
Oh, well, wonderful. Well, I look forward to hearing about that. Maybe we'll have a 2.0.
Mhm.
But yeah, so in the meantime, Mark, can you just tell us the best contact information for you?
Well, you can get in touch with me either through the website at idsproject.org,
Okay,
or you can send an email to me. I should have put that up on the list here. I'm
that's
sorry.
okay.
Didn't
I
think
will
about that.
put it in the description
Okay.
and also on any other links that we have. But just in general, the IDS Project website is probably the base for all the information they'll need.
Yep, definitely.
All right. Well, wonderful. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for watching us either during the stream or sometime in the future.
Oh, thank you very much.
Great. Enjoy your summer.
Yep, you too.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.